So to explore the pre-Christian understanding of keno, which would have to have been what someone like Paul would have had in mind when he used the term, particularly in passages like Philippians 2:7, it's helpful to consider the broader cultural and philosophical context of the word in Greco-Roman world before the rise of Christianity. The philosophical context. Now, remember philosophy. I know that Colossians 2:8 is in your Bible, okay? And there's a bad kind of philosophy that's propositionally reductive and constitutes a set of beliefs or persuasions or affirmations about particular things. We don't agree with that. And we think that Colossians 2:8 is warning us against all kinds of things like that, including Calvinism and provisionism and whatever else comes up that is propositionally reductive. But the word philosophy is the love of wisdom. That's what it is. And if you have read the book of Proverbs and agree with it, and by the way, anytime you make a choice, if you are engaged in the pursuit of making wise choices, you are engaged in philosophy, whether you like it or not. So intentionality to how and why we live is philosophy. Christianity is philosophy. We say, well, it's much more than that. Of course it's much more than that. But it also is philosophy. Okay? It is in the philosophical realm. So don't be scared of words. It just means the love of wisdom. Doesn't mean that everybody who ever wrote, doesn't constitute an endorsement of everybody who ever wrote under the umbrella category of philosophy. Doesn't mean we endorse all of what is considered philosophy, but we do endorse pursuing and loving wisdom. Okay? So don't be afraid of words like philosophy. We have a video on Colossians 2:8, though, by the way. You can go look at that. In Greek philosophy, the concept of emptying, keno, could have various connotations, often associated with the negation or reduction. For example, in Stoic philosophy, which, by the way, Paul is talking to Stoics and Epicureans in Acts 17. In Stoic philosophy, the idea of emptying oneself might relate to the negation of passions. Now, I want to pay attention to this. This is important. The negation of passions or unnecessary desires to achieve a state of apatheia, impassivity, aiming for rational control over one's emotions to live in accordance with nature and reason. Now, some of you I will say those words and you start flipping out like we're following some kind of demonic, the devil. We just start worshiping the devil when we just said these words. If you can sit through a church service and battle hunger pains, you are doing that. If you can sit through a church service where you have to pee a little, but you can hold it till the end of service, and then you wait till the end, that's what you are doing. Okay? The passions. Now, we talked in our other videos, we talked about the limbic system. Okay? And how the limbic system drives you to do all sorts of things. It has to do with fighting, fight or flight, or fleeing, feeding, feeling emotions, mating, or you might say flirting. Don't start a side chat on that. Freezing and fawning. Sometimes when you're afraid, the limbic system will put you into a paralysis, if you will. So the limbic system is responsible for what's called the 5 Fs, okay? And it's jokingly called the 5 Fs because mating starts with an M. That's why we have put flirting in there, as opposed to some other words, which were said on this channel recently during a conversation, which I very much enjoyed. So the limbic system has to be overcome through training when people are involved in combat, when people are involved in arguments with their spouse. The limbic system is very active. And when the limbic system is active, you're basically, this part of your brain is a design component that you have in common with apes, okay? So when the limbic system is activated and it's in charge, you're basically a talking ape, honestly, okay? So what we talked about in our previous session on the natural man was how to get in the prefrontal cortex and not in the limbic system. So there are different parts of your brain, and we talked about how to get there. And so what a Stoic is doing is essentially the same thing. Is the passions are coming out of your limbic system, trying to drive you to do certain things. And when you decide, well, yes, I think this woman is attractive, but I am not going to attempt to mate with her because that would be inappropriate. That's what's going on here. When your higher order executive functions can overrule your limbic system passion drives, that's what's happening there. And Stoicism was just a practice of how to embody that kind of discipline. Is really all it is. So the rhetorical and literary uses in rhetoric and literary context, keno could be used to denote the idea of making something void or devoid of its usual content or value. This could be used in discussions of laws, decrees, statements emphasizing the nullification or invalidation of something previously established. Culturally, the actions of emptying oneself could imply humility, there we go, modesty, qualities that were esteemed differently across various philosophical schools. For instance, while some philosophical teachings might emphasize the shedding of worldly concerns, isn't that what Christians also emphasize? Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth. Or wealth as a form of virtue, akin to cynicism. Others might also focus more on the internal emptying of pride or ego, which is something that we should also be doing, echoing some Platonic or even early Stoic thoughts. Oh, can you believe that there is something in common between Christianity and Platonism? Or worse yet, Neoplatonism, all those pagans. You know, they also drank water. So here's my water right here. So if they drank water and I drink water, does that mean I'm going to hell and I'm a pagan too? You guys really got to get over yourselves. When Paul uses keno in the Christian context, specifically referring to Jesus as having emptied himself and taken on the form of a servant, he taps into these existing cultural and philosophical narratives, but redirects them to illustrate a profound theological point. He uses keno. His use of keno would evoke the imagery of humility and self-negation, yet in a revolutionary way that portrays the divine choosing to relinquish divine prerogatives and privileges for the sake of human salvation. Now, we're not talking about doing these things for the sake of human salvation. A concept that would radically and deeply countercultural at the time. So what I'm talking about is not doing any of these practices to earn or get salvation, or if anybody had any kind of religious thing associated with these. And by the way, things that are often very valuable, they spring up in a religious mindset, okay? And that's fine. It's fine. We can do this like a salad bar. I don't care. So what we're talking about is when you establish an aim, okay? The best way to hit that aim is if you have a disciplined mind so that you can behave in a way that has you arrive at that aim. And most certainly, you are going to have to get your limbic system under control and other systems of your brain that we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes. Like Jocko Willink says, discipline equals freedom. So if you're going to wake up at 4:30 or 5:30 or whatever and go to the gym every day, that sort of thing, if you're going to discipline yourself, you are going to have to override your limbic system and other parts of your brain that do not want to do that. Okay, you're going to have to discipline yourself. That's part of what this is. And my contention in this video is going to be that the disciplining of the mind is a prerequisite to the disciplining of the self, and is at least, sine qua non. You can't do it without it. It's a necessary precondition. And then Paul could have been appealing to the broader audience by employing keno. Paul could effectively communicate to his Greco-Roman audience in terms that they were familiar with, framing the Christian message in a way that resonated with existing philosophical and cultural ideas, while also challenging them. The concept of a divine figure or God voluntarily becoming less to serve others would contrast sharply with the prevailing Greco-Roman ideals of power, honor, status, thus highlighting the unique and revolutionary nature of Christian doctrine of humility, service, and sacrifice. So it would be a clash with some of the mindsets that you would get back in that time. So let's talk about an emptying. If we're letting this mind be in you, okay? we're letting this mind be in you, and what Christ did was empty himself. There's going to need to be either an emptying or a stilling of the mind. Now we're going to I anticipate getting a lot of opposition from this because people are afraid of those phrases, okay? But don't worry, we're not going to let demons come in. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're exercising the mind in the same way that you would exercise your muscles so that you could get them to do like what you want. So if you're trying to do something as a human, your mind, including your brain, and I'm not equating the two, but brain is the hardware, you need to discipline it so that it can perform as you need it to based on the goals that you've set for yourself, right? And this, we're going to come across a concept, might be called like Wu Wei, or you might call it a flow state, something like this. Something happens. I play volleyball. In the center of this photo here, not that one, this one. In the center of this photo, you notice somebody hitting a volleyball down there. Okay. When I go to hit a volleyball, what I've noticed when I go to hit a volleyball is that no matter how many worries I have in my life, I'm concerned about, whether or not I got to do the laundry, what I have going on at work, or if I got bills to pay, whatever the concerns are, or if, Sally over there is mad at me. When the ball is flying through the air at me, I don't think about any of that. My mind goes completely, if you've ever seen the movie Equilibrium, I completely flatline my mind, and my body starts, especially if I've been trained to hit the ball well, I don't have to think about what I'm about to do, but I completely stop thinking and I go do the thing. One of the reasons it's so fun to play sports is because that happens a lot. And you get this oftentimes very brief, momentary, clear mind that some people work on through meditation to achieve for longer periods of time. You can get it in sports pretty quick. I got a guy here hitting a tennis racket. A flow state happens when there's a tight coupling between you and your environment, and error matters. Okay. So there's a tight coupling between the racket and the ball and the tennis court and your opponent and all that, and if you mess up, you lose a point. If you are climbing rocks, this guy climbing a mountain, there's a tight coupling between you and your environment, and error matters. You don't want to fall. Same thing. So sports are a really great illustration of this flow state that can be entered, and sometimes even in volleyball, especially in doubles, you can have an extended flow state just in one play when there's like a long rally that's going and the play keeps going, and you find out that your mind was basically emptied from all of your cares and concerns, and you're just performing. And usually performing well, okay, when you're in a flow state. So what if I told you this? What if I told you that there is a way to live life where your mind is just as clear and focused as when the volleyball or the football or the tennis ball is flying your way, and you could keep that up in a perpetual, ongoing clearness and focused mindset, and you could perform at a much higher level than you do when you have all these default mode network thoughts going through your head all the time. What if I told you that's possible? Wouldn't you think that would be something to strive for, something to do? I think that's what Paul is getting at in Philippians chapter 3. And I think it's something that we can do as well, to still and clear the mind so that it can be focused, and to focus the mind. You can also get into a flow state when it comes to music. I like to play guitar. So if you're on like a jazz ensemble and there's a lot of improv, okay, you can get into a flow state there as well. So in our previous session, we talked about how in the meditation portion, you're clearing the mind of all paradigms, okay? And then you go through a wake-up cycle, and then there's multiple things that you're doing after the wake-up cycle. So now I'm going to continue trying to clear my mind of all paradigms. That's one practice. Meditate to clear my mind of paradigms. Try to get into that flow state. And then I'm going to contemplate. Now, somebody misquoted this as meditative contemplation. That's not what I'm saying. All contemplate means is to seriously, intentionally consider something. Okay? These buzzwords, people are scared of these buzzwords. Oh, they're talking about contemplative prayer. I never said that, but why be scared of something? Why are you so scared of stuff? Contemplating. So what contemplating is simply when you become aware of an insight or a truth, you just think about it. That's all it is you just think about it. You already do this, okay? All I'm saying is that doing this intentionally disciplines your mind to overcome the thought inertia of when you didn't know this and didn't do this. One way you could, if you want to be very scientific about overcoming thought inertia from old ways of thinking into new ways of thinking, Dr. Caroline Leaf's book, Cleaning Up Your Mental Mess, takes you through a 63-day process where you can intentionally integrate new thoughts into the default mode network of how you think all the time. Create new neural pathways in accordance with these new thoughts and putting the old ones away. Is actually a scientific way to do this. So when the Bible tells you to put off the old man, put on the new man, you can actually prescribe this for yourself and undergo a process whereby you can fulfill that demand. And then we talked about some of these other issues, and then growing up is the appropriation of the new insight that you woke up to that you are now contemplating. How do I gain the capacity to do that thing? Meanwhile, you're still voluntarily adopting responsibility, and then another wake-up cycle happens and you keep doing these things. Fundamentalist Christianity is a pathologized. It's not almost like this. It's exactly like this. Fundamentalist Christianity is so pathologized that it programs people to be against what they need in order to be better, in order to be more Christ-like. You say with your mouth, you do honor me with your lips. You say with your mouth that you want to be Christ-like, and then you fight against everything that would actually make you more Christ-like. What we're doing on this channel is we're trying to actually help you become more Christ-like.